first， 所以第一个7年呢是帮助孩子发展属于他自己的生命的身体。
Then, what is the next important stage in the development of a young person?
那所以年幼的孩子，他的下一个重要的发展是什么？
What other remarkable thing?
那你觉得哪一件很令人惊喜的事情，或他们会做的是什么？就是生命头三天的事。下一个，让你讲说话。
I'm sure you all remember this very explosive time in your life.
这是一个在你的生命当中非常爆炸性的事。
You never agreed with everyone.
你跟任何人都不同意任何人说话。
When did that happen? When did that happen?
这个什么时候发生
？14 or 15 years old, around that time.
大约。
How old were you?
Right now?
No. I don't want to know what you. How old were you when?
When I disagree, everyone.
你什么时候就是什么东西你都不同意，然后你就是看世界都不顺。那个时候你几岁？
You know, birth is a dramatic time.
出生是一个很重要的一个戏剧性的事情，然
It's
后
not so dramatic,
换养没这么
but
戏
it
剧
is
性，
important.
但是它很重要。
What is the next dramatic time?
那下一个又很戏剧化的
Come
是
on.
9岁。
Teenager.
Teenage.
青春期，
Have you forgotten?
大家已经忘了，
You remember your teenage time?
已经忘记了你青春期是什么。
And if you have forgotten, go to your parents and ask them.
如果你忘了的话，去找你父母问他们。
The teenage time.
青春期这段时间，
So, about 13, 14,
大约13、14岁的时候，
we actually say that the child has come to puberty.
我们会说孩子进入了青
But
春
that's
期，
the end of a process.
但它是一个过
And now
程
a
的
new
结束，
process starts,
一
and
个
we
新
call
的
that
历
a
程要
different
开始
name.，
然后它要进入另外不同的层次。
And people are not very clear about this. It's actually called adolescence. Adolescence.
We use the same word in Chinese. 然后这个
Adolescence.
时候，这个阶段其实
You
跟
use
青春期
puberty for both. Okay.
那我们都是用同样中文都同的，都叫做青春期。
Okay. Well, in that sense, maybe English is a little bit easier to understand what I mean.
或许听英文会比较容易。我的意思是什么
Adolescence means before adulthood.
？Adolescence 这个字的意思是说，在变成成人之前，
It's before adulthood.
就叫做成人之前。
It's actually, a training time
是
to
一个
become
训
an
练
adult.
的，训练你要变成成人的这个时期。
Teenage years are actually a training time to become an adult.
所以所谓的青春
That's
期
what adolescence actually means.
，adolescence 这个字，它实际上意思是说，这一段时期是孩子在接受训练，好，即将变成成人。
And what happens in the adolescence is actually the third birth. Now the consciousness of the child is changing.
在青春期呢，其实孩子第3次出生，他内在的意识呢开始改变。
You'll find that if you have children of the of sort of primary school time, by the time they become teenagers, they start to have their own opinion.
你会发
They
现
don't
在
agree with you anymore.
在小学时期还不错的孩子，到了青春期呢，他开始有自己的意见，他都不同意你说的话，
And why is that? Because
What's
their
wrong?
third body is waking up.
因为第3个身体开始
This
醒来，
consciousness body.
这个意识的身体，
Their emotional life will now actually be the role of education.
所以他们的情感的生活才开始是我们教育的主角。
Because up till now,
因为直到
it
目
was
前
still
为止，
living with the consciousness or the emotions, reflecting the emotions of the parents
他们还是
or of the teacher.
在反映
But now,
反射父母跟或者是
when the
老
body
师
is
的
really
情绪生活。
Ready?
那但是现在他身体
Puberty, the
在
boy
青春期，
looks like a boy, the girl
男孩就看起来
starts
是
to
男
look like a
孩，
girl.
女孩看起来是女孩的样子。
Something happens here inside.
这里内在呢发生的一些事情。
And one of the things that you start to observe is
有一件你会开始观察到的事情是，
they become very sharp.
他们变得非常的锐和尖锐，很刺，
They become very argumentative.
很爱跟你争辩。
What are they doing?
他们在做什么？
They are actually sharpening their thinking.
他们事实上
Their
在磨
thinking
练、磨
now
砺他们的
actually,
思考。他们的
of
思
course
考，
they thought while they were a child at the kindergarten
当然他们
and
在
primary school.
小时候在幼儿园、在小学
But
他们
now
会想会思考，但是现在
the
呢，
thinking really starts to awaken
思考
and
开
they
始
are
醒，
starting to really develop their own inside, their
开
own
始发展自己内
life,
在
their
的生
own
活，他们
soul,
自己的
and they used it with the thinking,
their own soul，
their own soul.
他们自己的心魂，然后是透过他们自己的思考来发展。
So, what we just quickly summarizing,
那我们这里很快的做一个总结，
the child is born,
孩子出生了，
wants to be part of this world,
想要成为这个世界的
and in
一
the
部分，
first 7 years
所以头
is
7
actually
年
doing things in the world
开始
and
在去做这
discovering
些事情，
itself,
然后
its
发
own
掘
body.
自己的身体，
Then in the next 7
然后在
years,
接下来的7年，
it's waking up further to the world.
开始对这个世界越来
But
越
now
熟
in the
悉。
sense of the world is there, I'm here.
那有这样子
What，is
世界
my
在那，我在这里，我们的之间
relationship
的关系是什么？
And now the student actually becomes, so doing in the first 7
所以
years,
在头7年做事情，
experiencing in the next 7
第
years,
二个7年
yeah,
是经验事
sympathy
情，
antipathy.
同感跟理感。
And then in the next 7
那
years,
在接下来，
they come to the understanding of the world.
他们进入了对于世界的理解。
So, and it's very interesting if you really start to look at your own, the way you, if you have done something and experienced something, it's much easier to understand it. Have you ever
那其实
come to
回
that
头看看
conclusion yourself?
自己的经验，看看自己的话，你会发现是不是你做过，或者是你真的亲身体验过的事物，对你是比较容易理解。大家有没有这样子的感觉？
A thought, maybe you can start to think about it.
或者是你
So,
现在可以开始想想看，是
In
不是
the
真的是这样？
education,
所以
in
任何
the
的教育，
kindergarten,
在幼儿园，
we actually ask the child to do what we do.
我们会要求孩子，请他们做
The
我
child
们
is
会做
actually
的事情，
imitating.
他在模仿我们，
And it's actually imitating everything that is around it.
他事实上是会模仿他生活当中所有的事
And you
情。
can start to realize that
你会开始理解到这件事情，
are you worth being imitated?
你会开始想说，那你值不值得他们模仿？
Are you a good role model?
你是一个好的讲
Because the child will do everything you do. I don't know whether you have noticed that with your own children.
不知道你们有没有注意到，孩子
They
会
do
做任
exactly
何
what you have
做的事情，他们就做的完全一模一样。
in the kindergarten.
不管是当他们是在幼儿园的这个时期的时候，你做什么就跟你做一模一样。
So then in the next 7 years
那
they
接下来
experience the world.
他们开始经验这个
And
世
in
界。
this third 7 years in the high school,
第3个
the
7年，
focus now of the education is
教育的重
actually
点
on
是在
the thinking, development of the
发展
thinking,
思考，
yeah, but also the development of the understanding of the world.
但是同时也是要发展对于世界的理解。
So it takes 21 years
要花21年的时
to
间
actually educate a young person
来
to be
真
ready
正的教育一个
for
年轻
the
人，
world.
让他们为对世界做好准备。
High school maybe 18 years.
高中后
And then
续
they go to
到了
university.
18岁，然后他们进入了大学。
So what we try to do in the high school is to help the student to develop his own inner life.
所以我们在高中要做
That
的
is
事情是
emotionally
帮助孩子发
able
展
to
出这样子的内
control
在生
himself.
活。好，在情绪上他是可以控制自己。
I mean, you know that in the sort of in the business world, there have also been people discovering that there is an emotional quotient,
像大家也知道，在一般的主流社会里面，
and there is an
在
intellectual quotient.
在 商业的，我们都会谈到所谓的情绪
So
智商，也有智力的智商。
if all your teaching is on the IQ
所以如果你所有的教育都在 IQ 这个领域里面，
and there's no attention paid on the EQ,
那没有对情绪智商所谓的 EQ 有
then
任何的关注的
the
话，
young people today
现代的年轻人呢，
will have difficulty fitting into the world.
会有对于适应社会、适应这个世界会有困难。
So the focus
所以专
of
注
our
的
teaching is through the subjects that we teach,
我们
to
教育
actually
的
help
重
the
点是
child
透
to
过我
grow
们
up
所
in
教
this
的这些
world
科目，
in such a way that it actually feels I understand the world.
让孩子觉得我真的理解这个世界。
But another word I need to actually help here, as says here, we also have to awaken within this teenager, I love the world.
那另外一面呢，我必须要跟大家说的是，我们也要让
I
这
don't-
些青少年感觉到
I don't-
我爱这个世界。
I don't think many people love the world.
我想没有很多人是真的爱这个世界。
They say, well, I happen to be here.
他们
and
说
I
我刚好
just
在
wait.
这里，我就用
But
这
to
些。
really grow up
但是要真的长大，
and actually understanding the world and therefore love the world,
理解这个生活这个世界，而真的去爱这个世界，是一
what
个
a gift
是一个
for a young person.
是给予这些年轻人的一个多好的礼物。
And of course, that is the time. And of course, these students know a lot. Right? It's not the students know a lot. It's not that we didn't teach them anything, but the subject we teach is for the purpose of the EQ,
但是
not for the purpose to go to university.
所以这个时候到了这个高中的时候，孩子他们当然学到了很多东西，但是我们教授他们这些科目的目的，并不是为了要他在智商这边训练很多，然后可以进入大学，而是要教育他们的情绪智商，教育他们的
A lot of young people today
很现在很多的年轻
are
人
strangers in the world.
在这个世界当中是一个陌生人，
They're strangers. They don't really understand the world.
他们在世界当中是个陌生人，他
That
们不理
have
解这
very
个世
high
界。
qualifications.
他们经常都有很高的证书的。
And we know this from business CEOs.
你们会常听到在这些商业界，
Although they have a lot of knowledge,
或许他们有很多的智慧知
they
识，
are
有很多的知识，
unemployable.
但是
They don't fit in the social structure of the world today.
会发现很多的年轻人呢，他们是没有办法被雇佣，因为他们就没有办法符合适应这个社会的结构跟这样。
So, okay, I can't really go into all the subjects as we teach them, but one of the main ways of teaching is by, even in the science subjects, to actually always teach them the subject in the context of the history of humanity.
那我没有办法进入各个科目的系统，但是呢，我可以说的是，在这么多科目里面，甚至是在科学的科目里面，都是要在整个人类历史洪流的这个脉络里面去看。
So they know why certain laws were found in the 19th century in chemistry.
所以他们会知道为什么在19世纪呢，在化学里面某一个特定的法则被发现。
Not only doing the experiments and learn the laws, but they see it in the context of our
不是只
history.
是做实验，然后理解这个法则，而是在整个历史当中理解它的脉络。
And the other thing is
另外一件事情是，
why we use that in context is by teaching through biographies.
那另外一个方法可以在这样的脉络中进行，是透过传记来教学。
Young people actually learn more from giving them the biography of other people, how other people have struggled, how other people have, despite all the struggles, achieved great things.
年轻人呢，可以透过其他人，他在生命当中如何的挣扎，以及在这么多的挣扎当中，他们如何还是达成某一些目标，他们可以从这当中学到非常多事情。
So, Why is it important
所以他为什
to
么
have a high school?
为什么有高中很重要呢？
Because it finishes off that last third of the education of a young person.
因为他完成了一个年轻人，他最后
To go
这
into the
1/3的教育，让他们能够进入世界。
But then we also have the challenges.
但是呢，我们同样也会面临挑战。
Where do we find the teachers?
我们去哪里找老师？
Because teaching in a Waldorf school, and you're all familiar with your own class teacher,
因为在
teaching
华
in
德
a
福学
Waldorf
校，
school
你
is
们大家知
different
道，
from
透过你
teaching
们的导师，你们相应
in a
可
government
以看
school.
得到，在华德福学校教书是在跟公立的学校教书是很不一样，
And certainly in the high school,
特别是在高中，
it's different.
也一定
It's
是
the
不一样
same subject, the same facts,
同样的科目，同样的事实，
but actually what I said before,
但是如果我
looking
之
at
前
them
所
with
说，
new eyes.
是用全新的眼睛、全新的眼光
Looking
在
at
看待
them
它
with
们
new。eyes. The facts that science has discovered,
这些科学曾经发现的事实，
but the facts
也
or the discoveries of science, they are there.
这些科学的发现，这些事实就是在那里。
But how we use the facts
但是我们怎么使用这些事实，
is very clear.
是非常清楚的。
If we use the facts in the correct way,
我
we
们如
would
果
have
用
a
正
perfect
确
world.
的方式使用，我们就会有一个完美的世界。
I would say that if science really worked with the total holistic picture of the world,
我可以说哈，科学呢，如果是在这个世界整体的图像当中，
we would
真的
not
这样子图
have
像运作的话，
global warming.
我们就不会有全球暖化的问题，
We would not have global warming.
我们不会有全球暖化的问题。
Okay, I'm very happy to have questions.
那现在我很开心可以邀请大家
I'm
可以
sure
问
you
我，
have many questions. I hope you have many questions.
我想你应该有蛮多问题，我也希望你们有一些问题，能提出一些问题。
我想问的问题是说，因为我的小孩他现在4年级，他可能就是在艺术的阶段。那我觉得蛮抽象的，应该是说，因为我们受的教育其实就是体制内的教育。那要如何帮助我们去陪伴孩子预备？可能跟题目有点跟之前讲题目有点不太一样。我想说也要预备到高中嘛。那我会觉得很抽象的是，那个艺术性的让孩子去经验。那个在我们日常生活可以怎么样协助孩子？
My child is in grade 4 now, in this artistic way of learning experience. So how can we accompany them in our daily life or help them in our daily life to achieve it so they can prepare into
I think that in today's world,
我想哈，在现在这个世界当中，
giving the education of a child to a teacher is not enough.
孩子的教育交给老师，只交给老师是不够的。
I read an article in the Dutch news
我在
this morning.
今天早上读到一篇是荷兰的新闻，
More and more teachers actually, when they have qualified for teaching, are reteaching themselves and they go back to university to do masters in special needs education.
在越来越多的老师哈，当他获得了教师资格的时候，他们事实上必须回到大学里面去念硕士，来学关于特殊需求孩子的这个。
So the teaching we do in 4 years at the teachers' universities actually not suitable.
因为事实上，我们在大学4年里面学到了怎么教育的这些事情，然后一毕业的时候就不够。
We need special sort of skills as teachers.
所以我们身为老师需要一些特殊的技巧，
So that's one thing.
这是一件事情。
But the other thing is that it's my view
我的
that
观点是这样：
today the teacher has to work with the doctor
老师必须跟医生一起工作，
and has to work with the farmer.
也必须跟农夫合作，
Not the chemical farmer, but
不是这
organic
个
farmer.
不是化学的换成法，
Or for that
是
matter, the
有机
biodynamic
的
farmer.
甚至更好是比利龙环。
Many of the problems we have
我们现在有很多遇到很多的问题，
can be shown to be difficulties arising out of the lack of the quality of our food,
是从我们缺乏有品质的食物这个部分所产生出来的。
processed food,
这种加工的食物，
chemicals, residues in the food. All these
食物里
things
面的化学残留物啊，
Actually
等等这些事情，
are starting to show up.
这些问题开始出现，
And they show up in the class, and the poor teacher
然后他们在课堂里面出现
has
这
to
种
solve
问
the
题，
problem.
然后可怜的老师他就必须解
So
决
I
这些
think
事情。
my picture for the future is that even in Waldorf schools,
所以我的图像啊，关于未来的图像，即便是在华德福学校里面，
that the teacher works with the doctor, if you have an anthroposophic doctor, or
老师
you
都要
have
跟
plenty of
医师合作，最好是
Chinese
人治学的医师。那我们
more than we have homeopathic doctors, you are far better.
那如果没有人治学的医师，至少他有中医师，
You
这
can
比
still
我们
use
的人类
natural
疗法医师
medicine.
多了。我们可以还开始使用这些传统的药物。
So the child, doctor, teacher, farmer.
所以孩子，然后有老师、医师跟农夫。
So what you can do at home
那你
is
可以在家里做的是
look
呢，
at the diet.
注意他的饮食，
What do you buy?
你买什么，
Yeah. And what is in the food?
食物里面有什么东
Is
西，
it processed? Any processed food
任何加工的
actually
食
is no good.
物，事实上都是不好，
Yeah. So that's one thing.
这是其中一件事情。
And then, of course, there are other aspects.
当然还有其他的面向，
And this is particularly the case in the high school.
但是这是一个关于高中的特别的案例。
In the high school,
在高中呢，
the young person, as I have tried to explain to you, is starting to be secure in its own emotional life.
就像我刚刚跟各位所解释的，
And
年轻
we'll
人
have
开始在
many
他的
questions.
情感生活开始要找到安全，
And they're actually looking for a person that they can trust.
所以他们开始寻找他可以信任的这个，
And they're looking for role models.
开始寻找角色
In
的
my
典范。
time, when I was a boy,
那在
the
我的时
role
候，
models were the film stars from Hollywood.
当我是一个年轻男孩的时候，我的
Yeah,
我
maybe
的
it's
角
still
色
the
文化
case.
是谁？啊，他是来自一个好莱坞的一个。
By a lack of a good role model,
那通过这样缺乏好的生命的典范，他们开始找一些其他的生命典范，他们想要去崇拜、去仰慕某一些事情。
now who is the best person
那
for that as a role model?
谁是当做他们生命典范最好的人？
Is the parent.
就其实是父母，
And of course the teachers.
当然还有老师。
So what is really important
所以真的非
for
常重要的
a
事
young
情是，
person
对于年轻人来说，
that they can always reach their parents.
就是他们永远
Many families where the parents are absent.
可以找到，就是可以生出跟他
And
们
then the students have to
在
find their
很
own
多
way.
家庭里面，
And they fall in the trap of people that actually have
很多家庭里面父母是
evil minds and want to do something with the young people.
那年轻人是很容易陷入陷阱里面的，因为世上有很多这样邪恶的力量是想要影响
So
他
are
们跟利
you
用他们。
there when the child needs you?
所以当孩子需要你的时候，你在不在那里？
And this is mostly the case in, of course it's all the time, but particularly in the high school.
但是这个问题，当然老师随时都随时都存在，但是特别是在高中的时候，
Particularly a student of 14, 15
特别是孩子
their
14、
mood
15岁的时候，他们的
can
情绪，
change in 5 minutes
他们的情绪可以在5分钟之内就完全大
from
变，
being very happy
从非常开心
to extremely unhappy.
到极端的不开心
Right?
，5分钟。
And that's when they need somebody to help to see that and to help them.
所以这就是
Or they come to the question, they are really in trouble. They have an issue.
他们这时候就是最需要有一个人来帮助他们，然后不然，因为他们这时候真的会，不然他们真的会感觉他们有一个问题，他们一定要有人，需要有人来跟他们谈一谈。
And sometimes it can even be so serious that they think of taking their lives.
有时候这个问题非常的严重。
And we now
他们
have
会想要
institutions, telephone,
我们有这样的机构哈，比
where
如说
people,
自杀
where
专
young
线
people can actually ring a telephone, and on
年轻
the
人
other
真的
end
可
is
以
somebody who listens.
打这种电话，然后在线路的另一端有人会愿意听他们说，
But the parents should be doing that.
但事实上应该是父母来做这些事情。
And do the parents understand their child? Of course, is another thing.
那另外一件事情，父母真的理解他们的孩子吗？
If you bring a child to the world of school,
如果你带一个孩子
For
进入你
education
的华读学校，要来给他教育
dare I say that
，they are，
dare I say that you have come for education too?
那他们的我，孩子的我也是这样认为，我是来这里受教育，
Is the child taking you to the school,
是孩子带你来
or
这
are you
所学校
taking the child to the school?
还是你带孩
Have you
子
ever
去这
thought
所
about
学校
that?？
你们有没有想过这个问题？
How many parents actually discover at the end of the schooling of their children that actually they needed world of education as much as their children?
有多少父母呢，在自己孩子学习在教育快要结束的时候，才发现他们跟他们的孩子一样，需要华德福教育。
I'll come back to the 3 first questions I put here.
所以我们回到我们在前面
If
谈
you
到
don't
的这3个问题。如果你
who
不
you
知道
are
你是谁，
and why you were born here
然后你为什
and
么要
what
在这
you
里
do
出
in a
现，
meaningful way in your profession,
然后你在你的专业领域里面到底做些什么，要做
how
这
can
些
a
事情有没有
child
意
come
义？
to you and ask you for help?
那如果你都不知道这些，那你的孩子怎么来找你，向你寻求协助呢？
And this, of course, is for the very first instance for the teacher. If the teacher doesn't know himself,
所以这个在老师身上也是
how
一
can
样
he。teach a child?
如果老师对自己不了解，他怎么教孩子？
So it's not only whether I'm a good mathematics.
所以这个
It
问
is
题是在
far
于
more
说，
important
我到底数学好不好？更
who
重
I
要
am
的是
as a
说，
person.
我身为人，我是谁？
If a child is good in mathematics, he will pick it up anyway.
如果一个孩子数学很好，有天分，他无论如何都会学得起来。
I hope that is a bit of a question, answer to your question.
希望我这样的答案有稍微回答到你的问题。
Yeah. How do you organize your family?
你怎么样组织你的家庭？怎么样组织你的家庭？
Are you having a meal with your children in the evening?
你每天
All
晚上
around the table.
会跟你的孩子围坐在桌子旁一起用晚餐
And，all the computers are off and the TV is off.
然后电脑是关着，电视也是关着，就是在一
And
起
you
用
have
餐，
conversation.
然后谈话、对谈。
A child meeting a person on the screen is not the same. It's a virtual meeting.
一
But
个
the
孩子
meeting of you and the child is a real meeting.
孩子在荧幕上遇到的人，这些虚拟的会面，跟你跟孩子真实的面对面的会面是完全不一样的。
So don't send the child to the school and pay heavy money for it and say, it's your problem.
所以千万不要把孩子送到学校，然后花很多学费，然后说这是你们的。
I'm not saying that that's the case in
我
all,
不是说你
but
是这样
that's
子
the
的案
case.
例，
In many ways, it's the case.
但是大多数很多时候都是这样子的案例都是这样。
The other thing
另外一件
that
事
I
情，
like to say is,
我
if
想要说
a
的是，
child does something wrong,
如果一个孩子做了一些错的事情，
deal with the wrong,
就
but
处
not
理
with the
错
child.
误，处理错误这件事，而不要去处理孩子。
Have unconditional love for your child.
对你的孩子要有无条件的爱。
And the child will actually know.
孩子们事实上是
The
会知
child
道
will know that you're naughty, and the naughtiness is dealt with, but it has not changed your love for the child.
所以孩子会知道呢，他可以调
That's
皮
what
捣
the
蛋。
child should feel, even if it's punished.
那调皮捣蛋呢是会被处理，但是你对孩子的感觉，你对他的爱，还是永远都在。孩子应该要，即便他被处罚，也要感觉到你是。
And don't be afraid for being strict.
但是不要害怕严格，不要害怕对孩子严格。
I think today too many young children have too many freedoms.
我想现代的这些孩子，大 大多数都是有
And
太多
why is that? Because the parent cannot really set the boundary, because they don't know the boundary themselves.
为什么会这样子？因
And
为
the
家长
children
不
will
知道
run
怎么
riot.
设定界限，因为家长也不自己也不知道界限在哪，所以孩子就这样野到处跑。
I mean, there were things in, I have 4 children, 4 teenagers.
好，我有4个小孩，4个青少年。
We loved the time that they were teenagers.
我们很享受。
Maybe that was a special sort of thing. I love to be a high school teacher.
因为我很喜欢当高中。
Many people today don't want to be high school teachers.
现在很多人都不喜欢当高中。
Different. Terrible.
太可怕了。
The only thing is, they are terrible when they are 14.
唯一一件事
They're
情，
not terrible when they are 18.
他们只有14岁的时候会很可怕，他们18岁的时候已经不会了，我们都忘记这件事情。
This is the problem of junior high schools. A teacher in a junior high school will teach for the rest of his life always 14-year-olds.
因为在国中教的老师，他永远这
And
一
he
生
cannot cope with it.
都会教14岁的小孩，
He
他
cannot
们没有
cope with
办
it
法
because he
处理这
cannot
个
see
状态，因为他没有办
that
法
what
看
is
到，
difficult at that age is
在这个
normal.
年纪的困难，事实上是正常
And
的。
if you do educate properly,
如果你
then
真的好好
when
教
you
育
are
他，
18,
当到18岁的时候，
you're friends.
你们就变成朋友了。
Yeah? You don't have that experience.
他们没有这样的。
That's why these institutions of chopping up schools is not really very healthy.
所以就为什
So in
么
a wall of
这种
school,
的方式，把学习的把
we
它
go
切
from
成这样的
kindergarten. My children have been in the wall of school for 14 years, 16 years.
所以这就是为什么在华人学校里面会从幼儿
Always the
园
same school.
然后一路到上面14年、16年都是同一所学校。
But teaching is not a job.
但是教书并不
But
是一
teaching
个工
is a
作，
way of life.
它是一种生活的方式，
It's a way of life.
是一种生活的方式。
More questions?
我想请问老师，就是说我们看到的是很多家长选择华德福小学是因为孩子要快乐学习，好，那选择华德福国中会觉得是青春期很难搞，好，那为什么在家长会觉得我一定要去念华德福高中？那个华德福高中毕业生之后进入一个社会或是大学，跟一个国中就结束进入体制内，会有什么样的差别？因为老师是一个很多年的高中老师，我觉得他的看见是什么？
choose primary school when they're in high school age. They choose a more school because they want their child to learn happily, and they choose what school again when they are junior high because they are difficult, so they send them to what school. But why do they have to choose what high school? How will they fit in after they graduate from high school? 你刚才有什么？
跟国中就进入这个部分，他们处理压力有什么差别？
They finished only till maybe 8 or 9, then go back to the mainstream school. What's the difference between going back early or stay until
Yeah, I think
class 12?
that is very personal. It's very difficult.
这个是一个非常个人化而且
I
非
mean,
常困难的问题。
I have been involved in the building up of the first high school in New Zealand.
我是参与了在
And
纽西兰第一所学校的建立。
when we had the students in class 7 or 8
那我们在7年级、8年级的学生，
and decided to go into a full high school,
我们有7、8年级的学生，然后当我们决定要变成一个有高中的时候，完整的高中的时候，
some of the parents became a bit afraid.
有一些家长变得有点害怕。
Will they be ready when they are 18 to go to university?
当孩子18岁的时候，他们会准备好可以进入进入大学吗？
So they took their children away.
他们就把孩子带走。
And yeah, that's a reality of having the first high school, or when you start with the high school. Children or parents will take children away from class 7 and 8 because they
当你
very often they say,
要建立高中，或者是第一所高中的时候，
it's very
家长
fun.
在7、8年级的时候会把孩子带走，因为他们
Very often they say now they have to go to a real school.
他们就会说，他们现在该回去真
Now they
的学
have to
校，
really learn.
他们必须真的开始学习。
And of course, that's a misconception.
但这个当然是误解，
Because all our students that go through to class 12,
因为所有我们经历到12年级的
they
学
can
生，
go to university if they take an extra year.
他们呢如果多一年的话，第13年，他们
But
到
what
时
I
候
want,
可以进
what I
入
wanted to
进入
say
大学。但是我
is
想说的是，
these students that left in class 8 went to the local high school.
这些在8年级或9年级离开，然后去念一般高中的学
And
生，
I always believe
我总
that
是相信
a Waldorf school should have good contact with the other schools around them.
华德福学校呢应该跟他们附近的学校有很好的连接。
So I actually developed a good contact with the principal of the high school.
所以呢，我呢是跟附近高中的校长是有很好的联系。
And very often when there were the students that the parents took away visiting, the principal would say, send them all.
那常常呢，
They are our star pupils.
当有家长把这些孩子带离我们的
They
学校
refresh,
去公立
they
高中
want
的
to
时候，
learn,
我去拜访校长，校长会说
they
他
have
们全送
initiative,
他
and
们
they were
都
creative.
是明星学生，他们又有动力，然后又有想象力，又有创造力。
So I had to say to them, if I can help it, you get none. You don't get any of our
那我就会
students.
跟他讲说，如果我能的话，你一个都不会拿到，我全部的学生都会留在我们的高中，
So that you don't have to be afraid.
所以不去害怕。
But
但是
I also feel
我也感觉，
that our teaching in our Waldorf school should be up to standard.
我们在华东学校的教学必须是有标准、有品质，
They should be up to standard.
要到某一种程度。
And I always expected of my students
我总是
to
期
give
待
their best work
我的学生
without
要
giving them examinations.
不给他们考试，但是他们要尽全力。
But you know as a teacher who's working and who's not working.
身为老师，你当然
You
知道
don't
谁
need
在
an
努力，谁没有在
examination
努
for
力
that.
根本不需要考试就能知道。
So then the other thing is that we have now 5 high schools in New Zealand.
那另外一件事情是，我们现在在纽西兰有5所高中，
We're only a small country.
我们只是一个很小的国
We
家，
have only 4.5 million people.
我们只有
As many as you have here in Taichung.
大约人口数就跟你在台中人口数一样，
So it may not sound that we have many
那
high schools.
450万人口，所以其实听起来好像高中不多，但是很多。
But we have been able to work with the universities
但是我们可以跟大
that
学
if we give them a final report
如果我给他们呢一个最终的结业的
and
报
the
告，
report is up standard of academic quality,
那这个报告如果呢能够达到他们的学
the
生的标
students
准，
don't have to sit an examination, they can go to university because the professors and the lecturers know that our students will always be fine.
然后这些的话，这样子的话，学生就不需要去考那个入学的考试，他们就可以直接去念大学，因为教授总会写信说，这些学生的表现是很好。
The challenge to the school is,
学校会面临的挑战是
can we really give the trust to the parents?
，Can we really give the
Can we actually radiate that we are confident that what we are doing is of good standard?
学校的挑战是呢，我们要怎么样让家长感觉到，我们怎么样散发这样子的信心跟信任，让家长觉得说，我们做的我们的教学是有品质，是有帮助。
On the other side,
另外一面呢，
the parents also have to develop a trust that the teachers are doing a good job.
家长也会去发展这样子的信任，信任老师是在好好教学，这是一个双向的。
Yeah, I mean, there are cases of students that came for the last 2 years, and you can say, what point is there for a student who has been in the state or in government school, in the public school, and only comes for the last 2 years?
那也有一些案例是在高中的最后2年，学生才来到学校，来到华的学校。或许你们会问说，到底究竟最后2年了，这些学生才从公立学校转来，到底有什么意义？重点是什么？
A very interesting question.
这是一个非常有趣的问题。
And maybe it's the destiny of that student to actually have 2 years.
或许这就是
Couldn't
这个
have
孩子的
all the
命运，
12.
他没有办法有12年，但他
And
有
maybe it's
这2
very
年，
important.
或许这2年就是非常的重要。
How will we know?
我们怎么会知道？
So we have always to be open-minded.
所以我们必须随
Not
时
say
保
we
持
don't take
开放
any
的心胸，
students after class 10.
千万不能说我们10
Look
年级以
at
后就不
every
收任何学
student
生，
that knocks on your door.
每一个来敲门的学生都要看看他。
But also have the courage to say, no, I don't think the child will benefit from being in this
但
school.
是也要有勇气说，不，我不认为这个学生在这所学校会有益，会得到益处。
But also, the school has to be responsible to the parents for the children that are already there.
那同时学校也要为已经在这所学校里的学生跟家长负责任。
Communication
沟通，
really what we need today in today's world. Yeah.
这是在我们现
Communication.
在现在这个社会世界非常需要。
Treating one another with dignity.
有尊严的方式彼此对待，
New challenge.
这是新的挑战。
Now, it's my experience also that many upper school teachers are parents,
那
have been parents.
我的经验也是这样的，很多高中的老师，他
So
本
if
身
you
就
want
是
to
家
build
长，或
up
者说曾经是
a
家
high
长，
school here,
所以如果我们想要在这里呢建立一所高中，
maybe they are there
或许老师就在这里，
amongst the parents.
就在家长之中，
And then you have to prepare the parents to do that.
那你就必须帮助家长准备做这样的工作。
The best source of teachers.
家长就是最棒的老师的来源。
Any more questions?
还有其他更多的问题？
Is it time to go to your children?
是不是该回去找各位的孩子了呢？
Actually, walk our talk. Walk our talk.
回去走一走，想一想我们刚刚谈的事情。
I have a little booklet here.
好，这边呢有一本小小的书，
I don't know where my wife found it, somewhere in China.
我不知道我的太太在哪里找到的，在中国哪里买的？
It's called The Little Prince.
那叫做《小王子》，
Many of you probably know it.
或许你们很多人都知道，
It's one of my dearest books.
这是我非常
And
珍
I've
爱的
read
一
and
本
taught
书，
to all my grandchildren about The Little Prince.
我都念给我所有的孙子听。
It's a very modern story.
这是一个非常现代的故事，
It's a very modern
非
story.
常非常现代的故事。
And it's a story that fits every age.
其实这个故事呢，适合每一个年纪。
So I still read this from time to time and get inspiration.
我自己呢，也不时呢就会翻阅一下，然后能够从这本书里面当中
And I
得到一
want
些
to
灵
give
感。
this in Mandarin to the school.
所以呢，我要把这一本
It's
书
a little
呢
gift.
送给学校。
Yeah, it's a little bit. Good. Okay. Thank you for your translation and the patience. It's not always been easy.
谢
But
谢
you managed.
翻译的耐心，有时候并不这样讲。
Okay.
我们也需要 we also need more truth。
你知道，不一定要问题哈，就是你听完之后你有新的想要分享。
Yes. I mean, are there more questions? Do you have more questions? Otherwise, we
如果没有的话，我们也才会让继续。
maybe there's enough you want to think about.
或许这样目前暂时够了，大家可以稍微想一想。
And if you have questions after the talk, go to the teachers.
所以，如果大家呢在这场演讲之后还有其他问题，请去找你们的老师，各班的老师。
那我会做个结尾。听完老师的演讲，就让我想起那个斯丹纳老师讲的一句话。他说：“老师不要害怕自己现在教的不好。”他说：“你现在教的不好，你现在教的这个程度，就是会有这样的孩子来找到你。等到呢，你成 程度更高了，有偏国度较高的程度。一样有这个命中注定的这些。这个是我陈老师的这个得到的启发。所以我们当家长也不一定大家都现在都很完美，所以有时候对自己，有时候开放一点，也许就是一种艺术性。谢谢老师。
Okay, good. Good night.